Indu Navar has over 20 years of experience as a CEO, founder, board member, and investor in Silicon Valley software companies, leading to successful exits. After losing her husband to ALS in 2019, she redirected her expertise to health ventures, founding the Peter Cohen Foundation, everythingals.org, to advance technology-driven solutions for neurological diseases. She also serves on the boards of Global Genes and Answer ALS. Previously, Indu was a managing director at Woodside Capital Partners, advising on financing and M&A for software companies, and founder and CEO of Serus Corporation. She holds a bachelor's in electrical engineering from Bangalore University, a master's in computer science from California State University, Chico, and is pursuing a Ph.D. in Neuroscience at King's College London. Keep listening to learn more about Indu's inspiring life journey of perseverance and how she transformed the loss of her husband to ALS into a movement toward fixing a broken system.
Hello, everyone. I'm Helen Wang, the founder and CEO of Oceanside Perspective, a nonprofit educational platform. If you are new here, welcome to our community. And if you're already a member of the community, welcome home. Life is a journey filled with unexpected twists and turns. It's during those moments that our resilience and positivity become our strengths for not only surviving, but thriving in the force of adversity. Today, I'm excited to have Indu Navar with us to share her inspiring stories. Indu, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, Helen. Thank you for having me here.
Do you want to say hi to our audience?
Thank you for having me here. And I am really excited to meet each one of you. And, my journey might inspire you, but each one of you actually inspire me in my journey. So thank you for being here. And thanks, Helen, for giving me this opportunity to talk to your audience.
Yeah, I was trying to think today, how did we meet? When did we meet? It hasn't been too long. I think we met about earlier this year, a few months ago.
Yes.
And it was actually an industry conference hosted by University of California, San Diego.
Right.
And Indu was a speaker over there. I think the topic you were addressing was about AI. So I was super impressed by listening to your story, your current mission, as well as your journey, up to this point. So hopefully today will be a great conversation, and then just bring you back all the way to, when you were a child, the influences of your life. I just love to learn more about you. And so are you ready to begin?
I am ready.
I wanted to start by asking you, because there are things and events and people shape us, who we are. So in terms of sources of influence, is there a hero in your life? What did that inspire you and why?
I think it's my father. I think he's always inspired me from when I was a little girl. Like, I would always look up to him about everything he does and the businesses he ran. And what I saw was he was so passionate. He loved what he does. I mean, and I would always say, what does he do? I have no idea what he does because I was a little kid. But I would always say, when I grow up, I want to be like him. And the one time, he was on a stage and he was giving a speech to people. And I said, gosh, how come he's on the stage and everybody else is listening to him? Because he's actually touched these people in different ways. And I think that was the moment I thought my dad was really cool, that, he's actually inspiring so many people, touching so many lives. I would say he's always been my hero, and he's 89 years old now, and he's still my hero. So,
what does your father do?
So my dad is an electrical engineer, and he was, inventor of motors for crane and bullet trains in his earlier days. And then he built industries, non-ferrous castings factories. And, he's been an entrepreneur much part of his later life.
Wow. What is your childhood dream? Was like engineering education always expected, planned, or it was an accident?
It was never planned for me, at least, because my parents have 4 children and 2 older brothers and myself and my little sister. And growing up, I was always treated very differently than my older brothers because they were hard on them. They would tell them that they have to study, they have to become engineers or doctors, just like how, a lot of Indian parents or Asian parents do, right? But they never do that to me. They would be like, oh, don't worry about it. Just be cute and wear cute dresses and, just hang out. So that bothered me about why they're treating me so differently than my two brothers. Then, fast forward, I started seeing my cousins, my older cousins getting married at like 18 and 19. And I realized nobody in my family, no woman in my family has ever been educated before. And it was kind of the 18, 19, whatever, 20, they're still kind of going to college or not. That was not important, and I wanted to change that. So I set out to tell my father that I'm going to become an engineer just like him. And yes, they weren't happy in the beginning. But I was able to convince them, and my dad put all these challenges saying I need to get full scholarship from the state, and have to get into electrical engineering, and it has to be in the around where we live, so I can stay at home and go to school, and I accomplished all those things. So I think that set me on, give me a challenge and I can accomplish it because I can focus on it. And so yeah, that's how I got into engineering, much against my family's wishes, but they put up a challenge saying, if you can accomplish this, you will. And my parents really thought I wouldn't be able to, because they didn't want to say no. They thought if you can give me a challenge, then they don't have to take the fall. But it worked out that I did become an engineer.
No, that's very, very interesting story. Thanks for sharing that. Do you tell us a little bit about your hometown?
So I grew up in Bangalore, and I did my undergrad there in Bangalore University. And then the next thing came up was, I'm going to go to the US and get my master's. And my brothers were already in the US getting their master's in computer science. And I said, I want to do the same. And again, there was a little bit of a conflict with the family, but I was able to convince them that I will be very close to my brothers, even though it wasn't. But and so I came to California to do my master's in computer science.
So you became a software engineer.
I became a software engineer, yes. From hardware engineering, I moved to getting my master's in computer science. As soon as I graduated, I came to US.
Yeah. So what was your first job after you graduated as an engineer?
So it was at NASA in Moffett Field. So
Wow.
I came to, yeah, one of my master's thesis was doing intuitive UI-based solution. At that time, the UI was all new and it was motif. And so I did that was my master's thesis. So I got a job at NASA, the Aviation Safety Reporting Systems group at in Moffett Field, and they wanted us to analyze black box recorder data and build a flight simulation package. So that was my first job. And very soon I joined Silicon Graphics soon after that, because Silicon Graphics was really, at those times, they were the Apple of those times. It was like their company to work for. And soon after that, I joined WebMD because, Healthion was started by Jim Clark, who was the founder of Silicon Graphics.
Yeah. So what are those like early career experience? What did you learn from it? How did that inform your future?
I think I just was so excited. I realized really there's no limit. There's no limit to who I can become, and there was no limit to learning. And that was, I think, getting away from India and being on my own just opened up a lot of things for me, because I wasn't reminded that I was a woman. I was not reminded that there are constraints. I was not reminded that I have obligation to society, or can't stand out, there's a lot of conditioning that happens, whether subconsciously, consciously, you got to be appealing to men. It's not your career. You have to sacrifice things because it's important. Family is important. And so even though I heard that, I never sank into me. So when I came here, for me, getting away from a culture that was probably putting that into my head was just, for me, it was freedom. It was just, I was free here. I mean, I was free and said, wow, I can become whoever I want to be. And I'm very intellectually curious. And I said, that's going to be my thing. I'm going to, I remember going into Silicon Graphics, and NASA said, can you still work? And I had 2 jobs because I was like, I wanted to learn as much as possible, as fast as possible, And I'm now thinking about it, early 20s, I would leave one job, go to another job, not because it was like giving me money at all. I wasn't interested in that, but it was just the ability to grow, ability to learn new things. And with NASA, it was different kinds of people. We used to have red team, blue team, and then they would come and get assessed whether we would get funding or not. And I would go to the hangar and fly a plane because I needed to collect black box recorder data. And it was fun. It was so different, but I didn't want my career to be NASA. I wanted to do something in a innovative space. That's why I felt like I had blend of both.
Were there like a lot of female engineer like you, in those company, NASA, including Silicon Graphic and, WebMD, or you feel quite special there?
I think very, very few. There were very few women at that time. And not only that, at NASA, I was still an Indian citizen at that point, and they said, you come from a non-favorite country. At that time, it was considered a non-favorite country. So I had to get always a citizen with me if I had to go to certain part of the, so I just didn't feel like very accepted in a lot of ways because, I'm always reminded, not only as a woman, it's now, country. And so Silicon Graphics was really good. But yeah, there were not many women. But, I just learned through that, even engineering, right? When I went for engineering, we were probably 4 women to 110 guys. So it did not bother me at that point. I knew I would not look at myself as a female at all. I would look at myself as another individual.
Oh, wonderful. So after that, you, I guess, practiced a few years of being software engineer. You become a tech entrepreneur, right? And was there like a venture experience and stories as a founder and a co-founder? Could you tell us a little bit about your experience there?
So I was at Healthy On, which became WebMD, and I always wanted to start my own. I always wanted to be, an entrepreneur. That was very clear from the time I probably started at before Silicon Graphics even, and that was a time when the boom hadn't started, but I was just very interested in being on my own and seeing what my potential is going to be. And but I realized being at Silicon Graphics, I need to go to a startup so I can get references from people who have started companies before and who can say, I said, how do I build references, not software engineers references, somebody from the business world who can say that I'm capable of running a business or starting a company. So following that, I had a few offers in startups, but I joined WebMD. It was called Healthy On when I started. So the co-founder was Pawan Nigam along with Jim Clark. And I said, even when I went for interview, I told Pawan, my whole thing is you need to be my reference, when I start a company. So I was very, already planned. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I was going to launch something. And that's what happened. WebMD went IPO, and then I launched my own company. At that point, I figured, it's a good time. And then I got pregnant, and I said, that's okay. I'll just continue on. And I said, I'm going to think of this as like having twins, right? Starting a company and having a child. I mean, now it's like so accepted. At that time, I couldn't tell anyone I have a newborn baby. I was definitely very scared to say that. But yeah, and then we had 9/11. So everything came at the same time. But, I realized that I don't have to quit anything. I don't have to quit because I have fear of something happening. Let me just keep doing it. And if these challenges are something I can manage, I'm going to learn from it. I don't have to be afraid of something happening before it happened. So I took that attitude and I said, I'll continue to do it. And I'm going to peel the onion. I went to the team, we have 6 people, and I said, look, I don't know if I can pay you in 2 months because I'm going to run out of money, and 9/11 happened and nobody's talking to us. We have 2 things. One is we stick together no matter what, and we'll all come out of it together, or we dismantle and everybody's on their own, but we have nothing to show for. Everybody signed up to banding together, and they said, what's the worst that'll happen? Because after Healthion went IPO, I did buy a house in Los Altos Hills, and they're like, we'll go to a nice view house and we'll work from your dining room, at least it's not a garage. I was like, okay, you have a good perspective, So yeah, I mean, we just chugged along, and rest is history. We never missed a payroll. We never had to let anybody go, not because of those reasons of, for cash flow perspective, but, and my son is grown up. He was fine. He's thriving. So I just realized how much of things that we do by worrying about things that probably never happen.
I have a few comments and maybe a follow-up questions, So when you say that you're just thinking about you're having a twin, you are actually doing that, where you having a newborn as well as a new company. A lot of people actually asked me because I only got the chance to have one daughter, and then people was like, why don't you have, more? I said, you did not know because I had another baby named Apple.
Yeah.
Because I give everything I could to that company. I mean, I just no space, almost for another life event like a baby.
No, I agree. And I had one child too. I'm like, okay, that's good. It's like, I wanted to just experience motherhood, and it happened. And then I have, my career, and yeah, no, I can relate to that.
Yeah, and it was also funny was we named our daughter Irene. The elementary school teacher asked students, kids in the class, said, tell us your name, where your name come from, and why did your parents name you that way? My daughter asked me, and I gave her a reason, a complicated reason. Adult word is very complicated, especially a name, right? You only give it once. She did not remember any of this, but then she went back. She told the teacher, said, well, because my mom worked at Apple and I'm the I daughter.
I love it.
Just, what you just mentioned, that reminded me of this fun story. So you're successful with your first company that you started, although you probably have practiced this, by watching your father when you were kids, and then, of course, WebMD, right? Now you look back, what do you think you did right? What do you think you could do better?
I think what I do right is I have perseverance. When I set my heart out, I do it. I always say, don't start something you can't finish, right? So I think my innate ability and also the way that I think is, if I start something, there are going to be challenges, but I don't give up. And I always say failure is not an option. That doesn't mean that, you see a product, if it's not working, you might change it, pivot, and all those things. But at the same time, just understanding what can go wrong before it does and putting plans to it. It's really doing good mitigation plan, good plan A, plan B all the time. I mean, it's constant all the time. And that, for me, took away the fear. I'm not in fear at all of anything happening because I'm like, okay, I've got these things put together. So I would say that's probably one of the things that I have is perseverance. And some of my board members and investors actually commented on that. They're like, you're like a bulldog, you never leave anything that you catch on, you latch on, and you just like keep going. Because, we had a lot of challenges and a lot of companies shut down during the downtime we had in 2008, but, we survived through it.
So what happened to that company? what was the exit strategy there?
We were a venture-backed company, and the typical Sandhill Road raised probably about $18 million, and we were exited to E2 Open, a company which was public at that point. I think since then they've gone private, but they were a multi-billion-dollar public company. And yeah, I mean, we had a lot of interest from Oracle and other companies in the space, and E2Open was the right one for us. And my team is most of my team is still there. I mean, it's kind of really great to see that, they're thriving there after 10 years after the acquisition.
There was a story about you reached out to a CEO through LinkedIn, and then that eventually become a company acquired your startups. So could you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah. So I think we were in a tight place in our company where, there, like many companies happens, we had a conflict of what me as a founder CEO wanted and what the board wanted and what the investors wanted. And, I was very clear. I think we either go to a bigger vertical or it's time to actually think about growing this company through acquisition. And if we have to go through a different vertical, then it requires a lot more equity investment. And, there were a lot of things that happened in '08. Semiconductor companies, which is one of our vertical, kind of started merging and had a downturn for high-tech companies. So when my market was suffering and we still came out of it profitable, good revenue growth, and I thought I built it to a place where this is a good acquisition candidate. And that was the time I realized that I needed to get an offer on the table, which is something that, we can't ignore. So I wrote to a couple of the CEOs, public CEOs on LinkedIn, but one of them that I was really interested was E2Open. Mark Woodward was the CEO at that point. And, I wrote to him saying, hey, I'm the founder. If you're interested, here's my cell phone number, because I just didn't want him to send me to his corp dev. And, sure enough, he said, yeah, I would love to. And here's my cell phone number. And I requested we do one-on-one, met with him one-on-one in his office. And by then we had beat E2Open in many other clients. So I told him, I'll actually tell you why you lost this company, this company, this company. So he couldn't really ignore that. So he said, now tell me, why do you think I lost it? I lost the deal to you. So I told him why he's losing deals to us, and it'll continue because we are taking over and our product line is so much better because of these reasons. And, I said, look, if you're interested, I think we could actually make this 1 + 1 = 10, because instead of, competing in the marketplace, if we go together, I think the whole customer base will benefit, the market will benefit. I think it's the right thing to do. And he agreed, and, rest is history, I guess. So.
Yeah, wow, this story actually showcased your negotiation skills. So were you was born as a good negotiator in your family? And then I'm curious about your negotiation style and philosophy.
I think so. I mean, I think back to how did I learn these negotiation skills, because I think everything became a negotiation because I was a female. For the first time, I needed to get educated. I needed to show that I'm serious about my career, but serious about career means a lot of what do you say? It gives a lot of anxiety to the family, because they're like, oh, that means the guy might not like you because you're too focused on your career, but your goal is to. So I needed to negotiate with them each time about why this is good for you guys and the family, right? So I kind of learned that how do you take something you want and give it another perspective, and change their thinking in a way. It's not a big hop, but kind of doable. And even when I came to the US, I told my parents, I'm going to come here and I'm going to meet all the Indian guys and I'm going to marry them, right? One of them, not all of them, but I did not do that. But I just needed to get out, right? Come here. So I would say I give it to my family to. They showed me how to be a good negotiator because I had to practice a lot of those things. But I think I watched my dad. My dad he lost both his parents when he was very young, came from poverty, and he needed to learn how to, be smart about his way, becoming an engineer, doing his master's. And even then, India was such a place that a lot of influences work, and he didn't have any. So what he had was, certain skills. I mean, his negotiating skills, his perseverance, his ability to see things before anybody else sees. And I watched it. I watched that how he came up in life, and it's just amazing. He's a self-made man, and I was able to have a first row seat to life and seeing him. And I think I also learned, and we still talk about it. How he negotiates, how he saw another perspective, and made the other person see his perspective. And so yeah, I think I was also fascinated by my own thing, and I think I'm a lot like my dad.
Mhm. Yeah, this is fascinating. It's also very powerful. So at Oceanside Perspective, we have a slogan called Light Beyond Generation. Light is really leadership, innovation, technology, entrepreneurship. But beyond generation is also something I insisted. Just because of a story like this, we learn from our parents so much. And yeah, my father also have a very big influence over me. So I see this. It's like that's the best way to learn, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's you just watch, right? And kids watch. We've seen kids actually turn things around to us if we teach them something, right? So I would say I used to watch him. I was probably the best student among the four children, probably. I would watch him, and I would like go, let me turn it around and use it on him.
Yeah.
And when I didn't get my way, and when it worked, it was just like, oh, this is great, right?
So after that company, did you become an investor or there was more company in between?
My husband at that time was at Amazon for about 18 years. In 2014, when we finished the transaction, and he stepped down, and in 2014, and both of us started a company together uh, called Zendota. And at the same time, I was also an investment banker at Woodside Capital Partners. I kind of took a 1 year sabbatical between 2013 and 2014. So, and at that time, one of our investors was a managing partner at Woodside, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come in and just hang out? We'll give you a nice office on Page Mill Road, and just help us out, and it'll be good to get your perspective as startups come in, and you can mentor, you can talk to them about how you were able to go through 2001, 2008 recession, and what are some of the changes you had to do to survive." And I thought it was great because I can learn from them as well. And this was my 1 year downtime anyway. So, and that led to me selling 3 companies when I was there. And so I needed to be a full-fledged banker. And, so I went and got my 69 one certified and 72. And I was a banker, but that was never my thing. That was great. So, but Peter and I started working together, my husband. At that time, we would fund startups, and he would be on the kind of the board of the public companies, and also the large companies. And I was a startup person. So both of us worked very, very well together. And at that time, I landed up, starting some companies or being but I never wanted to run it. I would inspire a CEO, and I would fund the company and be kind of either at the co-founder level or the investor level or the board level. And so that's kind of what both of us did. And yeah, and I thought that was how I'm going to be. And I guess life had a different turn of events for me.
Yeah. So it's very interesting to me because not only you look up to, examples like your father, like role model like your father, you also worked at NASA and many companies that you look up to the leadership. Then you become one. You become the C-level and you're leading a company, your own, right? And then you start advising the leaderships in the company, when you're wearing like investor or advisor role. So your leadership journey is pretty special because you had almost this 360 degree, that most people probably don't. So I'm curious about that, your perspective, what takes to be a good leader, and what are some of the common mistakes that you might have observed that you wish that, people would know early, they would never make that mistake?
I would say in leadership, how you make decision during the crucial time really defines your character. right? I mean, it's leadership is not about, how you where your office is and what you drive, or how many happy hours do you throw in the company, right? It's really about how you make the decision when it's hardest time, and sometimes you have to make really tough decision, and that is defines your character. And as long as you can live with it, and you can say that I did this for what I needed to do, without ego, without power, without really practicing compassionate capitalism, I do believe that's what leadership is. Because it's not about ourselves anymore. This mission has to be bigger than us, right? I mean, it's not. I always say anything I do, it is bigger than me. And I always practice servant leadership. I won't make my team do something I wouldn't do, because I want to show that I'm there to uplift them, I'm there to make them successful. And those are the principles that I believe that is very crucial. And your character is defined when you're making tough decisions.
You mentioned the terminology compassion, capitalism, right? Can you elaborate? What does that really mean?
As a capitalist, we're driven by success. And a lot of it is also, we're driven by what quarterly goals we have, monetary output, revenues, right? But not to ever forget kindness, compassion, and it will be win-win. Take the people with you and inspire people with you. And I have people who work with me for like last 15 years, 20 years, and I see sometimes some people commenting, they're like a VP at Google, or VP at large company. I'm like, who is this person? I'm like, oh my God, they work for me, right? I mean, even though they were probably older than me when they started working with me, right? Um, so really, I mean, that is what I take as my asset. And, is when I can inspire somebody, and if they can be successful from it, it's like you're really creating this virtuous cycle of leaders and virtuous cycle of uh, being kind and compassionate, doing what you want to do, but never losing sight of values, never losing sight on what is the right thing to do. And it's yes, I mean, so many times I've walked away from deals and taken a beat at the board call, right? But I knew that was the right thing to do.
Great. I know your husband played a very, very important role in your life. And, if you're okay, we're going to pivot to know a little more about your husband and how you met with him, and the love story that you had with Peter Cohen.
Yeah. Peter is very, very dear to me, as you probably guessed. I would say, he probably embodied a lot of the values my dad has, coming from a place of hard childhood to self-made man to, also coming out of it when you don't have parents who are actually giving those values, but you somehow capture it in your life and you still hold it, that's just fantastic for me. Because for me, things were taught, things were told. But how do people like who nobody told them to be, a certain way, or certain kindness or compassion, or making sure your values are, very important, core to you? And that's what my dad did, and that's kind of what Peter did. So I feel like there was a lot of similarities with after I got to know him, obviously. um I met him actually in Palo Alto at the Four Seasons. He was speaking at one of the events, and I was one of the audience, as it always happens. I was one of the very few female CEOs compared to, probably hundreds of men, and probably I stood out. And we started talking, and he said he knew as soon as he spoke, within 5-10 minutes, that we would know each other for a very long time. And he told me that. He said, I think we're going to know each other for a very long time. It was very easy, very, I don't know, it just seemed like we were meant to be. I never thought that two people from different walks of lives can come in and just like be so similar. Our value systems were very similar. How we saw life was very similar. And what we wanted to accomplish was very similar. Yeah, I think I would say, that was the love story that he definitely, captured my heart. He's the love of my life.
Hmm. Were he at Amazon that time?
Yes, he was at Amazon at that point. Yeah, he was very early at Amazon. His career was not didn't divert too much. Where I think he was like in Virginia. He was at one of the software companies for a year, and then he got a call from Amazon, and he moved to Seattle, and that was history. I mean, he was probably in the first 100 people or even less, and he used to say that they used to have uh, 2 web servers and 1 database when he joined, and they had to grow, and it was Amazon Books at that point. It was called a books company. If you all remember, and so yeah, that's when he joined, and then he was one of the co-founders, along with 2 other people, of Amazon Cloud. He was one of the people who wrote the first what they call it backward documents on storage S3, and Andy Jassy would say, who's now the CEO of Amazon. Without Peter, probably there would be no AWS, or he wrote the first document for S3. And there's a lot of conversation about how he could foresee things. And when Andy said during Peter's memorial that he's one of the smartest people he's met, I said, thank you, because I used to always say he's one of the smartest people, and I thought, oh, might be I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid. Um, so yeah, he could see things that is what would happen 20 years from now, right? One of those people where we had a very clear vision of doing something, and he could see a roadmap for a long time. And even today, the startups who have become, unicorn, that he was in the original group, and the CEO was just telling me, I feel like Peter talks to me in my ears and tells me, what I need to do. It's kind of bizarre. I still get his advice. So, and he's inspired a lot of people, through that. For many years, post you living physical world, when people tell me that, I just say, that's life well lived.
Yeah. So you two mean to be together, and you think alike, value system. Either he gave you as a gift, or you took from him forever.
He gave me my purpose. I think, I know in a weird way he gave me my purpose, because when he had his first symptom of, oh, my ankle is not working, and I'm going to go see a chiropractor. And I remember him going, I'm going to meet a doctor today. I'm like, oh, okay, no big deal, right? He said, can you come with me? I was shocked. I remember stopping back and going, of course I will. I didn't want to ask him, are you okay? But he already has an intuition that something major is happening. But because we were working together, we were together for 24 hours a day. I mean, so I saw what was happening, how it unraveled, how it took us 2 years to get diagnosed, and going from doctors to doctors, and they wouldn't, it's just that they don't have tools. Anything with brain disease, there's no tools. It's almost like saying we all get diagnosed of stage 4 equivalent of cancer. Even though you say early, hey, there is something going on, it's more like saying, let's just wait and see if this is going to grow and become big. I'm like, it's not too late to do anything at that time. And then they go, well, there's no treatment anyway, so what are you going to do before you know? That's not the point.
Yeah.
Point is, if you keep doing that, how are we going to ever come up with a treatment? So I felt like this whole system is just very myopic. Everybody is just thinking of it not as a system on how to solve it. They all have a job, and they're just looking myopic about, this is my job, I'm going to diagnose at the time, and then not thinking through, if I diagnose early, might be they can get into clinical trials, and might be there is more opportunities for more drug companies to get it early. And, so there was no system thinking at all. So that was, something that was very frustrating.
Yeah, let's unpack a little bit for our audience. What's the medical terminology that your husband was diagnosed?
ALS. So it's also called as Lou Gehrig disease, because the famous baseball player Lou Gehrig was diagnosed in 1939 with the disease, which was ALS, and because he got it, it's called Lou Gehrig. The amazing thing was that the diagnosis he received in 1939, saying you have 2 to 5 years to live from the time you had your first symptom is the exact diagnosis my husband received in 2018.
Oh, wow.
So we have not moved a needle from the perspective of you will live 2 to 5 years from the time you had your first symptom, and it takes about 18 months to get diagnosed. So if you do the math, you just, you're already in the last breath in a lot of times before you get diagnosed.
What are the early symptoms that when your husband said something was wrong?
So ALS can come in many different ways. It could be what we call, it can start in legs, or it can start in your hands, it can start in your breathing diaphragm, or it can start in your voice. So this is a motor neuron disease from the brain. So it can attack anyone and then it spreads. So in my husband's case, it started with his leg.
Was there any understanding in terms of root cause, like what caused that disease?
We've known about this disease over 100 years. We still don't have any idea of what's the cause for the disease.
What's preventing us from knowing more, in your opinion?
I would say, focus, focusing on the disease, focusing on the root causes. And second is funding. We need to have more entities focused on root causes. It can't be like, you're doing some research over there and you've got postdocs and you write a paper and you're done. No, commit to it, right? Commit to eliminating this disease. It takes the effort to have a system thinking and funding to do it.
So how long did Peter and you and the family fought for that ALS until you lose him?
He passed away in 2019. So he didn't want to extend his life beyond, his quality of life was very important to him. And it was, for me, it was really hard to see somebody who has so much zest for life just wither away in such a short amount of time, and just had no desire anymore to. And I don't blame him, because it is a horrible disease where you lose all functions, like you lose your ability to walk, talk, breathe. So that's how mostly people die.
Yeah. Wow, that's really hard to hear.
It's a death by 1,000 cuts, because every day you just don't know what is not going to work. You just can't eat, you can't just move, you can't get up, you can't scratch your back, you can't. So, and everything is a surprise about what's going to happen next day. I think the magnitude is really, is really huge of what happens to the human being and their families, and how they have to take care. And there is really very limited understanding of what the support system we need. The insurance companies have to understand it. It's just like the whole system, I feel like, fails these people, because it happens so fast. And by the time they're coping with it, they can't go fight. They can't go fight the system. It's not like a 10-year disease and you have time, right? So it's just like they pass away. And if you talk to a lot of people who've had family members with that disease, they say, I never even want to utter that word anymore, because it just, there's a lot of PTSD around it. So that's why I, decided I'm going to stay in it. I'm going to stay in it, and I'm going to become the voice for people who can't have the voice. And I learned so much about this. And, we're in the Silicon Valley. We have the Silicon Valley thinking. When we come across a broken system, we fix it. I don't want Peter to be known as he died from the disease. I want him to be known as he showed me the disease. He showed me what can happen, so we can actually fix it in his honor. And I really want his suffering to mean something. His suffering means that we fixed it, or we got treatment and we stopped other people from going through what he went through. That's my desire.
Yeah. So you founded Everything ALS in 2019.
Right. Everything ALS is doing business as for Peter Cohen Foundation. So he lives through this work that we are doing. And our goal is to do the system thinking and bring AI, ML tech platform and data. So the things we do differently is we are a direct to citizens research platform. That is, we bring people from ALS directly from social media, directly from affected people into our platform, and we collect data directly. So that way, the difference is that people would get 25, 50 people over a year. We get 600 to 800 people over a year, right? The magnitude is, 100x. And how fast we can move, because we're a tech platform where, we collect the data, we analyze. We're really a software company with Everything ALS. We have software engineers, we have data scientists, we have researchers, and we also have group which will work with the patients. So that's the whole thing about care to cure. You gotta care about people who are going through this. And so that's when you will come up with a cure. So our goal is to make this journey less gruesome. And so we can actually also focus on treatments. And I have about 14 pharma companies who are part of our network and who fund a lot of our initiatives. And not as a service provider, they're not my customer in the sense that we're not providing a service for them. We are providing a platform for treatments, and companies are funding those initiatives that we are working on.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier about the system failed, right? And I'm wondering about what you're building this platform right now. Are you fixing part of the system? Are you building a new system? Like, how do we, what would this approach solving the problem?
So think of it as like we're a hub, and we're able to connect other systems that actually works in silo together. Everybody's got their systems, but nobody was talking to each other in an effective way. So we are the centerpiece where we connected each one of them. And now we have a data exchange and information exchange among everybody in this form.
What are some of the technology breakthrough that, for example, AI, how do you utilize this technology to help solving this problem?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of ways. In clinical trials, for example, cancer, you have a tumor and you can see how big or small, but in brain, you don't have anything. So they can't. So what we have is patient-reported outcome. So that means they will ask, how is your walking 0 to 4? How is your breathing 0 to 4, right? How you feel, that becomes the indicator to go in and look at the trial. But what happens is that they have to go to the center to do that. So we have to fly all the way to Mayo Clinic in a condition that it's deteriorating, mobility is affected, so that people can ask these questions to us. Who designed this? We shouldn't be coming all the way, spending 3 days with all of these mobility issues, and a lot of people drop out because they can't afford to do that. So a lot of people are actually axed out of the system. And then you can see pharma companies are like, we can't get patients, and it's so hard to recruit patients. I'm like, okay, one system does not talk to the other system. So so we have digital biomarkers. So that is, we actually figure out, instead of asking how is your speech 0 to 4, we said, let the system decide, So we collect people's data, and we have come up with an algorithm to not only know where you are, and we predict your progression. So we'll say, if the drug works, we should be able to say, oh, well, see, their speech is getting better. And I can say in 6 months, they're actually going to be a lot more better, right? Without that, it's not about time right now. We need to be able to project what's going to happen 6 months, 12 months from now, because the drug trials are about 6 months. But in brain, you don't really change everything in 6 months. If you keep taking the drug, you might change in 12 months or 18 months, but there's no ability to even do any prediction. So we actually do those predictions as well. So our breakthrough has been what we call in speech, called listener's effort. We just published the paper on it, and we now are also working with clinical trials. We're going to implement these in some of the clinical trials with our pharma partners. So that means our algorithm, our machine learning, can actually look at, you speak 13 words, 15 words, and then we will be able to say, oh, these are every week, every other week, we can actually predict this is what is happening. And 12 months from now, we can actually say if it's getting better or worse. So that's our speech, and we're working on breathing as well right now, different metrics for breathing, and then walking. We put sensors in people's shoes, and also ankle, and see how people are walking and their balances, and it's getting better or not. So this way we can actually see tiny changes that happen, and we can predict over long term instead of asking somebody, how is your walking 0 to 4? We feel like that's a gross metric. If somebody's got diagnosed with ALS, we can actually say, what are some of the things you have to be based on your own personalized, individualized care model is what we are creating right now for each one. We can predict what's going to happen. So you can actually do something before it happens. Might be you do breathing exercises. You can get a physical therapist much before, or a speech pathologist. We want to get away from right now. The way it is like, oh, your kitchen is under fire. Let's just wait and see if your house will burn down, right? That's the mentality right now. And we need to change that to saying, hey, your kitchen is under fire. Let's put it off and let's see what else we can do, because you don't have to wait and see. Because without tools, that's what happens. But with data and with tools, you can give ability for people to make decisions. They're all good people, but there's really scarcity. There's no tools available. And all of these things have to be validated. So we need to bring real ALS patients, real ALS neurologists to say, are we doing the right thing? Is the data analyst doing the right thing? And then have it, accepted by the FDA. I mean, so it's a whole process we need to do. So we figured out how to get it done in 2 years. So we're doing rinse and repeat now with each one of them. And in the shortest amount of time, I always say we're a tech company. We're not a life science company, right? We work at the tech speed, not at the biology speed. So that's a breakthrough we have, is that what we call clinical endpoints, digital biomarkers. And the second one we just launched is called Vision 2030, v2030.org. That is getting each one of the researcher who's focused on ALS repair and regeneration, that is focusing on cure, is going to be getting the whole data infrastructure and AI infrastructure to run through a lot of modeling to say if this is working or not, so we can do the fail fast approach.
What is the biggest challenge? Is that a technology readiness, technology availability, the funding, or just the system by itself? Because you're trying to connect, right, all the different data points together.
What I've realized is connecting the people has been such a refreshing journey for me. People have actually joined. People know they want to do it. They want to do the right thing, because they started off coming into this field knowing it's very hard, knowing that there is no solution, but they still chose to come into ALS. So I really applaud them to say, I will choose this field to do research in, because nothing has happened. So connecting people has been not that I thought it would be, but it's not been the hardest, the challenge. I think the challenge is, we have technology, we have technology readiness. It's the people. We need to get competent people. We need to get cutting edge technologists. When I talk to some of the people, they go, oh, probably I don't understand this field. I'm like, you do understand. We understand tech. Tech companies should really take this seriously and say, we have to invest. We need to invest our people. We need to invest our resources. So I think as technologists, we can actually do a lot more. We can change the, landscape, which was 100 years ago. How cool is that we tech actually did that? I would say that, and pretty much, funding. And I would say, NIH and all the other organization, ARPA-H, they all come up, but we need to have more focused funding approach. Why are you funding certain things? And fund the cure, not, little here, little there. Anyway, I think those are the challenges.
Would you give us the sense of urgency of solving this problem, maybe the magnitude, right, in terms of how many people are actually affected by this?
So in ALS, it's the same as MS. So 1 in 300 people have a potential of getting ALS. So we say one in your high school class. Very similar to MS, but people hear about MS because people live longer. And there's a lot more treatments now with MS. There are, I think, 40 drugs or something like that. And somebody was telling me the other day, if a MS patient comes in a wheelchair now to a clinic, it's a surprise, right? In a short amount of time, and I think 10, 15 years, we've changed the landscape for MS because, there was focus and people lived. So this is totally doable. I do believe that it's totally doable. It just takes the effort and focus from people. Look what we did during COVID, right? I mean, we thought nobody can come up with a vaccine for 16 years, and we did. We came up with a vaccine in 12 months. So it's these processes that we've built together. We have to, just remove those unnecessary barriers so that we can actually innovate. And today we have cloud, we have compute, we have storage. So we're in a very, very different place, and a great place to actually analyze the data, use the power of data to actually solve this.
Yeah, so you're doing this, started with Peter. If Peter is watching right now, what he would say to you?
I think he would probably be very excited that I'm actually here trying to fix something that I learned through him. And I think he would be proud of me. Yeah, I think he would be.
How would the people help?
I call this a citizen-driven research with open innovation. Let's not just wait for a medical community to come up with a breakthrough. We, the people, have the power. We, the people, actually can come together and give the data. I mean, I need data from people with ALS, their families, and also people controlled who don't have ALS, because we can compare that to what's happening in the ALS. So we can actually come together. And if you see, the movement is very similar to what happened during the HIV, right? I mean, people all came together to say, we're going to solve this, and we can then give that, aid to the medical community, to the pharma community, and me connecting the patients directly to the pharma. I mean, they love it. They like, oh, we had not even seen a patient, right? I mean, like, because we are so siloed, pharma can't talk to the patients directly. They have to go through the hospital system, and hospital system only happens if the people walk through the hospital system. But a lot of these people don't, because you can't. 60% of Americans live about 70 miles or over 75 miles from a neurology center. They can't go, they can't travel. So we've actually left out, talk about diversity, ethnic, diversity or inclusion, zero, right? People can't go. I mean, so when we go through a remote, we're a B2C and a B2B. So I call it, our B2C is really bringing the patients participants into our research. We organically have ethnic diversity, which actually very similar to United States ethnic diversity. So that shows that people from all walks of life are coming into the community because they're interested in, of course, it's a power of all of us coming together. And then we're a B2B, that is, we're bringing in the pharma companies, we're bringing in all the neurologists, biotech companies to really work directly. So we always say, what's your friction? What's the data you need? You tell me what your frictions are, we're here to remove it. So so that's kind of the approach. So I would say, how can people help? People can help in many different ways. Get involved in research, be part of the movement. If you're an AI expert, please come and join us. And if you want to fund, you can go and be part of the and thank you, Helen, for giving your donation. And anything, I would say this is the time of all hands on deck. If you all come together, we can do it. We can solve something that we've known for over 100 years and really, really be proud of something we came together. And this platform we're building, Helen, can be deployed to many other diseases. It's not about only ALS. This is a platform methodology. And I can stand today and say, I think we've figured out how to solve a lot of the diseases that is fatal, that we don't have treatments today, and especially don't understand, like the brain disease, right? So I really think doing this direct to patients, open innovation, and bringing this ecosystem together, we've accelerated it, and the proof is showing. And of course, we have a lot more work to do, but at least we see the glimmer of success.
Yeah, I think packed with technology and talent, and you're actually inventing a new approach, a very innovative approach, to accelerating all the research that needed and to address the sense of urgency of this problem. So I urge everyone, I'm very happy to make my small donation, to Everything ALS. We will include the website for donation. Do you have any advice for younger generation? I mean, people might want it to be an engineer, might want it to be a CEO at one day, an entrepreneur. So if you across the board, what skill do you think they should acquire?
I would say it's so much as a mindset, always nurture what you want to be. Don't let the barriers actually take you down. These barriers are really made up. You know, if you set your heart to it, if you think you have a vision to be somebody, and you were inspired because you saw someone and you said, I want to be like that, totally doable, because we're all humans. That's how humans evolve. So I would say when we embrace that, we set ourselves free. I love what I do. It's like getting to that place of, you know, embracing your energy and whom you want to become, and don't have to settle for something because of reasons, that barriers that we think that exist.
What about the advice for female leaders, or engineer or technologist, entrepreneurs? When you see yourself is like one out of, I don't know, 50 or 100 out there, right? Most of them are different from you. What would you say?
I would say a lot of females that I've come across, or they've asked me for advice, is that people are afraid of making a mistake about raising children, or, you know, do they have enough time, or is that they will actually screw up somehow, right? They don't want to screw up, and then there is a tug of war between, am I being selfish about, you know, focusing on my career, and I would say none of it is true. It's a different tangent, you know. When you love your life and what you do, that's what you teach your kids. That's what you kids are learning from. Not that you actually made a dinner at 8 p.m. or, you know, what they learn is how you can embrace this passion of yours. And of course, you know, it might not be dinner every day, but might be half the time, or it doesn't matter, right? I mean, yesterday I was at a sushi place and I was saying to the guy, like, remember when my kid was 5, I used to bring him every day there and he loved the sushi place. I didn't have to cook. I would take him to the sushi place, you know, when everybody was having play dates and I couldn't, like, you know, be there. And I said, do you feel like your mom, you know, you wish your mom was not running a company and being, he said, are you kidding me, mom? It's so cool to say you're a CEO, you know. Actually, what we're teaching the kids is passion and being a leader, you know, and that's what we're teaching, right? So I would say, you know, no more than they learn from the parents, you know, they learn from the mothers, they learn from, I mean, of course, many people might say, I don't want to have kids, and it's fine, like, you know, and I would say women usually are hard on themselves to actually be perfect and not take that next step because they haven't learned everything. And I would say, that's not true. You're going to learn through the job. You're going to learn through doing it, you know. Just be confident and take that step forward, and we're going to learn. I think downside is very low.
Yeah. And you're one of a few CEOs that I have met, both run like for-profit company before, also nonprofit. So I'm curious about, what do you think the differences are? And Oceanside perspective as a nonprofit, do you have any advice for us?
You know, when I didn't know what was the difference either. I thought, oh, it's just tax status, you know, why worry about it? I do run my company as though it is, you know, it's a tech company. What I realized was, I figured, where's the competition, right? Because you're not developing a product, there is competition, just that they don't say it. It's a fundraising competition. You know, people get like, oh, you're fundraising from the same bucket I am. Like, you know, yeah, when I first started, people were like, not nice at all. And I was like, what is going on? And then I realized, um, it's unsaid competition. It's unsaid, but I'm like, don't worry, I'm not going to fundraise from anything. I figure out a business model, come up with revenue models and business models. That's my, you know, strength. And, you know, that's kind of what I did here. But um, so the nonprofits, you know, you do find a lot of good people, a lot of people who are very kind, very compassionate, but you also find the lack of making hard decisions. We need to make hard decisions. We need to pivot. We need to change. We need to fire. We need to, you know, those are the things that you learn from the for-profit. So I would say I've been gifted with, you know, blend of both.
Excellent. What's your next big step?
My next big step is really to, you know, what we have developed, where we call it digital biomarkers, to make it a must have. It's not a nice to have. Changing the way clinical trials are done, and really making it very patient-centric clinical trials, so more patients can actually enroll and more drugs can actually get into a mode of doing faster trials. And, I know it's a nitty-gritty detail because that's how we're going to come up with a treatment. Shots on goal. We need to do many, 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 many of these things all at once so we can see which one sticks. So really to amplify research, to amplify trials, or, and amplify, patient engagement. And I'm really excited. I think we've created a platform which took us last 3.5 years to build this flywheel, because the flywheel takes a lot of energy to build. Once it's built, it takes very little effort to run. That's where we are. We've built a flywheel, and now with very little effort, we can actually scale, 10x, 20x, 100x, because we've built this flywheel.
Indu, what do you want your legacy to be? And how do you plan to achieve it?
I think I want my legacy to be that Peter is going to be alive for the rest of his life. And secondly, I want to have cure for ALS and treatment for ALS before I leave this earth. That's something I want to leave as a legacy. And I want our love story to live forever.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm deeply touched by your story. Indu, thanks so much for sharing with us. And, being deeply loved by someone give you strength, while loving someone deeply give you courage. Well, then things always happen, right? If the people we love are stolen from us, the way to have them live on is to never stop loving them.
Yes.
I think your journey with Everything ALS and with Peter's name and heart there. I wish you the very, very best success for Everything ALS.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate having this opportunity to talk to you and your audience. I really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you. As we wrap up, I wanted to remind everyone Oceanside Perspectives' mission to ignite diverse perspectives from authentic voices across generations. May this episode inspire you to love more, think more, finding your mission and purposes in your life. Please share this episode with as many people as you can to support mission-driven organizations like Everything ALS and Oceanside Perspective. Thank you very much for your support, and until next time, take care.
Thanks for listening to Oceanside Chat. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you liked it, please share our podcast and stay tuned for more episodes. We'll see you later.